Ethan's ship came down like a burning arrow, cutting through the alien sky before smashing into the thick jungle. Metal screamed, glass shattered, and his body slammed against the harness. His vision blurred, ears ringing, but the heat of the wreck pushed him to move. Smoke curled around the broken hull, and the air was heavy with a strange, sweet scent. Every step felt like walking through water, but he forced himself out into the green light. Leaves bigger than his body swayed above him, dripping with glowing droplets. Somewhere in the distance, something growled, low, deep, and dangerous. His side throbbed where the harness had bruised him, and the cut on his forehead kept sending warm trickles down his face. He turned, trying to find a path, when a soft sound cut through the noise of the jungle. It wasn't a growl. It was a voice. A what? He spun around. The voice was close, almost at his ear, but he saw nothing but shadows. Then she stepped into the light, tall, graceful, with skin that shimmered faintly like moonlight through water. Her eyes were long and golden, pupils thin like a predator's. A slow movement behind her caught his attention, a tail, swaying lazily from side to side. Before he could speak, she tilted her head, studying him as if he were something strange and fragile. Then her lips curved into a slow smile. "A grrr," she said, and the sound was not quite a word. It was a purr, low and smooth, that seemed to slide through the air and wrap around him. He blinked. What?" he asked, confused. She stepped closer, her bare feet silent on the moss. The jungle seemed to hold its breath. "A grrr," she repeated, drawing out the sound like a secret. Her tail swayed again, eyes never leaving his. Ethan didn't know if it was a question, a threat, or some alien greeting. But the way she said it sent a strange shiver down his spine. Before he could ask again, a distant roar rolled through the air, deep enough to make the ground tremble. Her smile vanished instantly. She turned her head toward the sound, ears twitching. He hadn't even noticed she had pointed, feline-like ears until now. She moved suddenly, fast as lightning, grabbing his wrist with surprising strength. "Move," she said, voice sharp now. She pulled him into the dense undergrowth, weaving between glowing vines and thick roots. Ethan stumbled, branches slapping his face, his boots sinking into soft ground. Every now and then, she looked back at him, her eyes narrowing as if judging whether he could keep up. "What is a grrr?" he tried again, panting. Her lips twitched, but she didn't answer. Instead, she slowed near a massive fallen tree, pulling him underneath the hollow trunk. The space was damp and smelled of earth. Through a crack in the wood, Ethan could see shadows moving, tall, armored figures with long spears tipped with bone. Their armor gleamed in the faint light, and they moved with the silent precision of hunters. She kept her voice low, almost a whisper. "If they see you, you die. If they smell you, you die faster." He froze, holding his breath. One of the hunters turned its head, scanning the forest, its mask reflecting pale light. For a moment, Ethan thought the creature's eyes locked with his. Then it moved on, vanishing into the foliage. The alien girl's claws, he realized they weren't just nails, dug lightly into his arm as she kept him still. Only when the sounds of the hunters faded did she release him. "They hunt for sport," she said finally, "not for food." "Humans?" She nodded once. "Especially humans." The strange purr she had made earlier returned to his mind. "And that word you said?" She tilted her head again, smiling faintly. "Not a word. A test. No human has ever passed." Before he could ask what kind of test, another roar thundered through the jungle, much closer now. Her smile faded again, replaced by something colder. She glanced toward the sound, then back at him. "You crash here, human. You breathe our air. Now you must play our game." "What game?" he demanded, a knot tightening in his chest. She leaned so close he could feel the warmth of her breath. Her golden eyes seemed to glow. "The game of the grrr." Before he could react, she was moving again, pulling him deeper into the jungle, away from the wreck, away from anything familiar. The leaves closed above them like a ceiling, and the sounds of pursuit grew louder. Every step felt like falling into something he didn't understand, a trap, a trial, or maybe something far stranger. But one thing was certain, whatever a grrr was, he was already part of it. Ethan followed her through the twisting jungle paths, his boots sinking into damp moss with every step. The air was thick and warm, carrying scents he couldn't name, sweet, sharp, and faintly metallic. The alien girl moved ahead of him with effortless speed, her tail swaying in slow rhythm, her body weaving between tree roots and hanging vines like she had walked this path 1,000 times. She didn't look back often, but when she did, her eyes scanned him the way a predator studied prey, checking his balance, his breathing, his speed. Ethan was beginning to understand that she wasn't just guiding him, she was testing him. The glow of strange plants lit the narrow trail, casting green and blue shadows on her skin. Every time she passed under a low branch, Ethan noticed the smooth way she ducked without slowing. He was clumsier, brushing against the foliage and earning small cuts on his arms from unseen thorns. Finally, she stopped near a wall of thick vines, holding up her hand for silence. Ethan froze, his own breath sounding too loud in his ears. She reached forward, pushing her fingers into the vines and parting them to reveal a dark, narrow opening. "Inside," she said softly. Ethan hesitated. "Where does it lead?" Her lips curved faintly. "Safer than here, for now." He ducked into the narrow passage through the side, the vines closing behind them like a door. The air inside was cooler and smelled faintly of stone. His boots scraped against a sloping surface until he realized they were walking down into some kind of tunnel. The walls began to glow faintly, revealing patterns carved into the rock, spirals, claw marks, and tall figures with long tails and sharp eyes. Ethan recognized her species in the carvings, but there were other shapes too, shapes that looked human. "You've met humans before," he said quietly. Her gaze flicked to him, unreadable. "Long ago, they were unprepared." "For what?" She tilted her head, almost amused. "For the grrr." Ethan stopped walking. "You keep saying that. What is it? A person? A weapon? A challenge?" She stepped closer, her tail brushing his side as she passed him in the tunnel. "A grrr is a moment. It is when something inside you decides if you are the hunter or the hunted. It cannot be faked." "That still doesn't tell me what it means for me." "It means," she said, turning to face him with a small, sharp smile, "you are in it now." The sound of footsteps echoed from behind them, heavy and fast. Ethan glanced over his shoulder, seeing flickers of light, torches or something similar, getting closer. "They followed us?" he asked. "They always follow, but they won't follow here for long." She pressed her palm against a carved symbol on the tunnel wall. A low grinding sound filled the space, and a hidden panel slid open, revealing a larger chamber beyond. The room was lit by glowing blue stones embedded in the ceiling. In the center stood a wide pit, its edges marked by dark stains. Chains hung from hooks above it, swaying gently. Around the walls were more carvings, beasts with long fangs, warriors holding spears, and a single figure standing alone against many. Ethan stepped toward the pit. "What is this place?" She walked beside him, her voice almost a purr again. "The proving ground. This is where the grrr is decided." The sound of footsteps behind them grew louder. Without warning, she shoved him toward the pit. He stumbled, grabbing the edge just before he would have fallen in. Looking down, he saw movement, shapes shifting in the shadows, eyes reflecting the blue light. "Are you insane?" he hissed. She crouched beside him, her golden eyes locked on his. "You want to live? Pass the grrr! Fail, and the hunters will have you before your body even cools." Ethan felt the air shift as something below moved closer to the surface. He could see claws now, long and hooked, dragging across the stone. He looked back at her, searching for any sign of mercy. Instead, she reached forward and traced a single claw lightly along his arm, just enough to leave a thin red line. "The grrr will know if you are afraid," she whispered. "It will smell it on you." The footsteps behind them stopped. He turned to see shadowed figures filling the tunnel entrance, their armor glowing faintly. They didn't enter the chamber. They simply stood there, watching. "They won't touch you while the trial begins," she said, standing and stepping away from him. "But if you hesitate, they will end it for you." Ethan gripped the edge of the pit, his pulse thundering in his ears. He didn't know the rules. He didn't even know what he was fighting. But the hunter's stillness told him one thing. Whatever happened next, they were here to watch him fail. The alien girl's tail swayed slowly as she smiled again. "Now, human, show me what you are." Then she pressed her palm against another stone, and the floor beneath Ethan shifted. With a sudden drop, he was falling into the darkness of the pit. Ethan hit the ground hard, the impact knocking the air from his lungs. The floor was damp, cold, and uneven, made of smooth stone worn down by time. Above him, the blue glow of the chamber ceiling looked far away, and the alien girl's silhouette leaned over the edge, watching him. Her tail swayed lazily, but her eyes were sharp and fixed on him. The darkness around him felt alive. Shapes moved just beyond his vision, their steps soft but heavy. A low growl echoed, coming from more than one direction. He pushed himself up slowly, his muscles tense, scanning the shadows. From the corner of his eye, he caught a flicker of movement, something fast and low to the ground. Then another sound came, not a growl, but a deep, vibrating rumble, like something breathing heavily through a wide chest. He searched the floor for anything he could use as a weapon. The pit was littered with fragments of stone and rusted metal. His hand closed around a jagged piece of iron, heavy and cold. A voice drifted down from above. The grrr begins when the first strike comes. Survive and you may leave. Fail and you will be forgotten. Ethan didn't have time to shout back. A shape burst from the dark, slamming into him with enough force to send him rolling. Claws scraped against stone inches from his head as he twisted away. The creature was massive, its body low and muscular, its skin a mottled black and green that blended with the shadows. Its eyes glowed faintly yellow, locked on him. It circled him slowly, shoulders rippling under its hide. Another growl came from behind. Ethan spun and saw a second beast stepping out from the dark, its mouth opening to reveal rows of needle-like teeth. 2 predators. No escape. He moved sideways, keeping both in view. They responded in kind, shifting to trap him between them. He could hear the hunters above, murmuring in a language he couldn't understand. The alien girl said nothing, only watched. The first beast lunged. Ethan sidestepped, slamming the iron shard into its shoulder. It roared and twisted, trying to shake him off. He released the shard and rolled under its body, feeling the heat of its breath as it snapped at him. The second beast charged, but Ethan grabbed a loose stone from the floor and hurled it into its eye. It snarled, shaking its head, giving him just enough time to scramble toward the far side of the pit. His mind raced. He couldn't kill them both with scraps of metal. He needed the pit itself to be his weapon. He spotted a cluster of hanging chains swaying gently. If he could get them tangled in it, the first beast lunged again. Ethan dove to the side, letting it crash into the chains. They rattled and wrapped loosely around its neck. The creature roared, thrashing violently. The second beast moved in to attack him, but Ethan grabbed one of the hanging hooks and swung it hard into its face. Blood sprayed, dark and thick, and the beast reeled back. Above, some of the hunters shouted in surprise. The alien girl leaned forward slightly, her golden eyes glinting. The first beast tore itself free of the chains and came at him again, faster now. Ethan ducked low, letting it pass over him, and slammed the hook into its leg. It stumbled, crashing into the wall. Cracks formed in the old stone. That gave him an idea. He backed toward the same spot in the wall, shouting and waving his arms to draw both creatures toward him. They came at the same time, snarling, claws scraping the floor. At the last moment, he dove aside. Their combined weight slammed into the weakened wall. The stone shattered with a deafening crack, sending the beasts tumbling into a hidden drop below. Dust filled the air. Ethan coughed, wiping grit from his eyes. The pit was silent except for the distant sound of rushing water from the dark hole the creatures had fallen into. He looked up. The hunters were no longer murmuring. They were silent, their eyes fixed on him. The alien girl tilted her head, her lips curving into the faintest smile. "You are not prey," she called down. Ethan stared up at her. "I told you that before this even started." She crouched at the edge, her tail curling around her leg. "Many tell me, few prove it." One of the hunters stepped forward as if to speak, but she raised her hand and they stopped. Her gaze stayed locked on Ethan. "Climb up, human. The first part is over. The next will be harder." He scanned the pit for a way up. Thick vines clung to one wall, and he began to climb, his muscles aching but his mind focused. As he reached the top, she offered her hand. He hesitated, then took it, her grip strong and warm. She pulled him onto solid ground. Her eyes searched his face as if reading something there. "The grrr is watching," she said softly, "and now it's interested." The alien girl did not give Ethan time to rest. As soon as his feet touched the chamber floor, she turned and started walking toward another tunnel, her tail swaying in slow, deliberate motions. He followed, every muscle in his body sore from the fight, but his mind burning with questions. The hunters above had not left. Their footsteps echoed faintly, following in the tunnels above, as if they were tracking him from a distance. He could feel their eyes even when he could not see them. The tunnel grew narrower, forcing them to walk single file. The walls glistened with moisture, and the air smelled faintly of metal and something sharp, almost like blood. The blue light from the stones faded, replaced by a dim, pulsing glow deeper ahead. She glanced back at him, her golden eyes reflecting the light. "You did not freeze," she said. "That is rare for your kind." "I've been in bad situations before," he replied. "You just threw me into one without telling me the rules." Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "There are no rules, only the end." They stepped into a wider chamber. The floor here was uneven, littered with bones, some animal, some disturbingly human. In the center was a long, shallow trench filled with liquid that shimmered with an oily surface. The air above it rippled with heat. Ethan stopped. "What is that?" She walked to the edge, crouching gracefully, dipping the tip of her claw into the liquid. It hissed instantly, tiny bubbles rising before vanishing. "The second trial," she said. "Cross without touching it. If you touch, you dissolve." He scanned the room. On the far side of the trench, he saw an opening leading deeper into the temple. There were no bridges, no ropes, only scattered pillars rising from the liquid at different distances. The gap between each was too wide for a casual jump. "You're serious?" he asked. Her eyes narrowed. "Do you think the grrr plays for fun?" He moved to the edge, testing the first jump in his mind. The pillars were slick with moisture, some tilted slightly. The heat from the liquid was already making sweat bead on his forehead. "Hunters are coming," she said softly. "If they catch you here, they will not wait for you to fall." That was enough to push him forward. He leapt to the first pillar, his boots slipping slightly but holding. The heat was worse here, rising in waves that made his vision blur. He heard movement above, metal footsteps in the narrow walkways around the chamber. The hunters were indeed watching. He jumped again, landing on a tilted pillar. His foot almost slipped into the shimmering liquid, and the heat was so intense he could feel it through his boot. He steadied himself, taking a slow breath before moving again. From the edge, the alien girl watched with her arms folded, her tail curling lazily. "Do not think," she called out. "Thinking makes you slow. Slow makes you dead." The next pillar was farther than the others. He crouched, judging the distance. The hunters above muttered in their strange language, their voices low but tense. He jumped hard, landing just barely on the edge. His knee scraped against the wet stone, but he managed to stay upright. The heat made his lungs feel heavy. His head swam, and the oily surface below seemed to shift and twist, as if something was moving under it. A faint hiss rose from the trench, and he saw tiny ripples where nothing had touched the liquid. He moved faster now, ignoring the burn in his legs. 2 more jumps, and he landed on the final pillar before the far edge. The last gap was wide, and his legs were shaking from the strain. "Do it!" she called out, her voice low but sharp. He leapt with everything he had, landing in a crouch on solid ground. He stayed there for a moment, catching his breath. The alien girl walked toward him, her steps silent. She stopped close enough that he could feel the warmth of her skin. "You are still alive," she said. "The grrr will not like that." "I thought passing the test was the point," he said. Her smile was faint but dangerous. "Passing means you move to the next part. The next part means you bleed more." Behind them, the hunters entered the chamber, looking down at the trench. One of them muttered something, and another laughed, a cold, metallic sound. She turned toward the next tunnel, glancing over her shoulder at Ethan. "Walk or be dragged. The trial does not wait." Ethan followed, the heat still clinging to his skin, the scent of the oily liquid lingering in his nose. He didn't know how many trials there would be, but he was certain of one thing. The alien girl wasn't leading him to safety. She was leading him deeper into the grrr. The tunnel narrowed again, the ceiling dipping low enough that Ethan had to duck. The walls here were warm to the touch, pulsing faintly like the inside of some living creature. A low hum vibrated through the stone, growing louder with each step. The alien girl moved ahead without hesitation, her tail flicking side to side like a metronome, keeping a steady pace. They emerged into a vast circular chamber, the largest yet. The ceiling was lost in shadow, but the floor was covered in fine black sand that seemed to shift under their feet. In the center of the chamber stood a stone platform with strange markings carved deep into it, glowing faintly with a pale blue light. Ethan scanned the room, instantly suspicious. What's the catch this time? Her eyes glimmered in the dim light. The third trial is not about speed. It is about control. Control of what? She stepped onto the sand, her bare feet making no sound. Your body, your breath, your mind. The grrr will test all three here. As she spoke, the sand beneath Ethan's boots shifted more noticeably. It wasn't just loose, something was moving under it. Long, slow ripples spread outward from where he stood. A sudden hiss cut through the air, and the sand upward in a spray. A massive segmented shape rose from beneath, armored in dull black plates, with curved pincers snapping in the dim light. Its body coiled and uncoiled like a living whip, each movement sending sand flying. Ethan backed away instinctively. That thing is alive? The alien girl tilted her head slightly. It is older than this temple, and hungrier. The creature lunged, its body moving far faster than he expected. Ethan rolled across the sand, feeling the sharp edge of a pincer slice the air where his head had been. He scrambled to his feet, his boots sinking into the shifting ground. The girl watched from the edge of the platform, her expression calm. Do not run without purpose, she called out. The sand will pull you down. He realized she was right. Every fast movement made his feet sink deeper, forcing him to slow just enough to keep his balance. The creature circled him, its armored plates clattering together. He glanced at the glowing platform. If he could reach it, maybe the markings meant something. Maybe they were a weapon or a trap. The creature lunged again, and he sidestepped, swinging a fist-sized rock into the side of its head. The blow made it recoil for a moment, giving him enough space to move toward the center. The sand fought against him, pulling at his legs like invisible hands. When he was halfway there, the creature dove under the sand and vanished. The silence was worse than the attack. Every sound was magnified in his head. Every grain of sand shifting underfoot felt like the start of another strike. He forced himself to slow his breathing, scanning the surface for movement. The alien girl's voice came again, low and deliberate. The grrr is watching how you choose your moment. It does not forgive waste. A tremor passed beneath his feet. Without thinking, he leapt sideways just as the creature erupted from below, its pincers closing on empty air. He landed hard but kept moving, finally reaching the edge of the platform. The moment his boots touched the stone, the sand around it shifted violently. The creature lunged for him again, but as its body crossed the glowing markings, a flash of pale blue light surged upward. The beast shrieked, the sound rattling the walls, and recoiled as if burned. Ethan didn't understand how it worked, but he knew the platform was safe. He grabbed one of the loose stones from the carvings and hurled it at the creature, hitting it square between the eyes. It hissed and circled the platform, unwilling to cross the glowing lines again. The alien girl stepped lightly onto the platform beside him, her tail curling around her leg. You adapt quickly, she said. Or I die quickly, he replied. Her eyes narrowed slightly, a flicker of amusement passing over her face. The grrr likes those who survive, but it likes them even more when they do not flinch. The creature dove under the sand again, and this time the tremors moved toward the far wall. With a sudden burst, it disappeared beneath the surface completely, leaving the chamber still and silent. The girl stepped off the platform, glancing at Ethan over her shoulder. The trial is done, for now. He followed her toward another tunnel, the black sand still clinging to his boots. His body ached, his lungs burned, and his mind raced with questions he couldn't yet afford to ask. At the tunnel's mouth, she paused and looked back at him. You are closer to the end than any human before you. But the grrr is not finished. It will want more. Ethan met her gaze. Then it can come and get it. Her lips curved into a slow smile before she turned away, leading him deeper into the dark. The tunnel ahead was darker than any they had passed before. The faint glow from the temple stones stopped at the entrance, leaving the path lit only by a cold silver light seeping in from somewhere far ahead. The air was cooler here, heavy with the scent of damp earth and stone. Ethan's footsteps echoed softly, and every sound seemed too loud in the silence. The alien girl moved slowly this time, not with the easy grace she had shown before, but with a careful, deliberate pace. Her ears twitched at the faintest noises, and her tail stayed low, swaying only slightly. She did not speak for several minutes, and Ethan began to feel the pressure of the quiet building in his chest. "What now?" he finally asked. She glanced back at him, her golden eyes catching the silver light. "The fourth trial," she said. "The grr likes to see loyalty tested." Ethan frowned. "Loyalty to who?" "To me," she said without hesitation. They stepped into a vast cavern where pale beams of moonlight streamed down through cracks in the rock above. In the center of the cavern was a narrow stone bridge stretching across a deep chasm. The drop was so far that the bottom was swallowed by darkness. The bridge was barely wide enough for one person to walk at a time, with no rails to hold onto. On the far side stood 3 hunters, their armor catching the silver light. One held a spear with a hooked blade. The other 2 carried long, curved weapons that shimmered faintly. They were waiting. Ethan's hand instinctively went to his side, though he had no real weapon. "And them?" "They are here to make you choose," she said softly. "If you go forward, you will face them. If you step aside, they will take me instead." His eyes narrowed. "Why would they take you?" "Because they believe I have broken their law," she said. "Perhaps they are right. I was not meant to guide you this far." She stepped onto the bridge first, moving with slow, balanced steps. Ethan followed, his boots scraping against the stone. The air above the chasm felt colder, pulling at his clothes, making it harder to keep steady. Halfway across, the hunters began to move forward. The one with the spear called out something in their own language, his voice deep and sharp. The alien girl replied in a calm tone, but her tail lashed once in irritation. "They say you must turn back." She translated. "They say the grrr ends here for you." "Not happening," Ethan said. The hunters closed the distance quickly. The first swung his spear in a wide arc, forcing Ethan to duck. The blade missed his head by inches, cutting the air with a hiss. Ethan grabbed the shaft and shoved it to the side, nearly pulling the hunter off balance. The second lunged, and Ethan sidestepped, letting the narrow width of the bridge work in his favor. The alien girl had moved ahead, keeping the third hunter from circling around to flank him. She fought with fluid movements, her claws flashing in the silver light. Ethan stayed low, using the limited space to force the hunters into single combat instead of letting them surround him. The spear wielder struck again, but this time Ethan caught the shaft with both hands and twisted hard, yanking the weapon free. He spun it once and slammed the butt of the spear into the hunter's chest, sending him staggering backward. The hunter's heel slipped on the edge, and for a moment his arms flailed before he toppled into the abyss. The second hunter roared and charged, but Ethan used the spear's hook to catch the enemy's leg, jerking it sideways. The hunter hit the stone hard, sliding toward the edge. The alien girl's tail whipped forward, wrapping around the fallen hunter's arm, and with a swift pull, she sent him over the side. Only the third remained. He stepped back toward the far side, his weapon raised defensively. The alien girl advanced on him slowly, her golden eyes fixed. With no words, she struck in a blur, her claws slicing across his chest. The hunter stumbled and fell to his knees before she kicked him backward into the darkness. Silence returned to the bridge, broken only by Ethan's breathing. She turned to him, her chest rising and falling steadily as if the fight had barely touched her. "You stayed," she said. "I wasn't going to leave you," he replied. Her tail brushed lightly against his arm as she passed him on the narrow bridge. "Then you have passed more than the grrr asked for," she said quietly. They reached the far side, and she led him toward another tunnel. This one was brighter, lit by a warm orange glow that pulsed faintly as though it came from fire. "The last part is ahead," she said, her voice softer now, "and when it ends, the grrr will have its answer." Ethan followed, the echo of their footsteps fading behind them, knowing that whatever came next would decide everything. The tunnel opened into a chamber unlike any they had seen before. The walls glowed with streams of molten light flowing through deep cracks in the rock, casting the room in a shifting orange-red glow. The air was thick and hot, making each breath feel heavy. In the center stood a raised circular platform of black stone, surrounded by a ring of fire that burned without smoke. The alien girl stopped at the edge of the ring, her tail swaying slowly. "This is the last trial," she said. "The grrr ends here." Ethan scanned the platform, seeing nothing on it. What's the challenge? Her eyes met his, and for the first time there was no playful glimmer, only a quiet seriousness. You face me. He blinked. You? You have survived the beasts, the traps, and the hunters, she said, stepping lightly over the fire as if it weren't there. Now the Grur wants to see if you can stand against the one who led you here. She moved to the center, her posture relaxed but ready. Her claws caught the firelight, glinting dangerously. If you win, you walk free. If you lose, you belong to me. Ethan stepped over the flames, the heat biting at his skin. The stone platform was warm under his boots. He kept his eyes on her, watching for the first move. She struck fast, faster than anything he had faced so far. Her claws sliced the air where his chest had been a moment earlier. He stepped back, feeling the rush of heat from the motion. She pivoted smoothly, her tail whipping toward his legs. He jumped over it, barely keeping his balance. You hesitate, she said, circling him. That will kill you. He tightened his grip on the spear he had taken from the bridge fight, swinging it in a wide arc to keep her back. She ducked under it and closed the distance in an instant, slashing at his arm. The edge of her claw grazed his skin, leaving a thin red line. She smiled faintly. First blood is mine. Ethan didn't waste breath on a reply. He feinted a strike to her left, then shifted quickly to the right, jabbing the spear toward her side. She twisted away, the point scraping her armor-like skin but not breaking it. She countered with a swipe aimed at his head. He ducked low and swept the spear across her legs. Her balance shifted, and for a moment she stumbled. Ethan pressed the advantage, striking again and again, forcing her back toward the edge of the platform. The firelight danced over her face, and for the first time he saw her eyes narrow in something close to effort. Then she leapt over him, landing behind his back. Her tail wrapped around his wrist, yanking the spear from his hands and tossing it out of reach. Before he could turn, she slammed her shoulder into him, sending him down to one knee. You fight well, she said, standing over him. But the Grr is more than strength. Ethan lunged forward suddenly, grabbing her leg and pulling hard. She fell onto the warm stone, but rolled away before he could pin her. They both scrambled to their feet, breathing harder now. This time, Ethan didn't wait. He charged, ignoring her swipe, and caught her around the waist, using his momentum to drive her backward. They skidded across the platform, stopping just at the fire's edge. The heat was intense here, and the flames reflected in her golden eyes. She stared at him for a long moment, their breaths mingling in the hot air. Then slowly, she smiled, not the dangerous testing smile from before, but something softer. You did not yield, she said. I wasn't going to, he replied, his grip still firm. She placed her hand against his chest, feeling his heartbeat. Then you have passed. The Grr accepts you. The fire around the platform dimmed, sinking into the stone until only the faint glow of the molten cracks lit the chamber. And she stepped back, her tail brushing lightly against his leg. From this moment, you are not prey. You are chosen. Ethan retrieved his spear and followed her toward the exit, the heat fading as they stepped back into the cooler tunnels. As they walked, she spoke without looking at him. The Grr is not just a test. It is a bond. You fought beside me, against me, and for me. Now we belong to each other. He glanced at her, unsure if she meant it as a promise or a warning. Outside the temple, the jungle stretched under the pale light of alien moons. The hunters were gone, the air still except for the rustle of leaves. She turned to face him one last time, her golden eyes shining. A what? He asked, with a small smile. She stepped closer, her voice a low purr. A grr, she said, and this time he understood. Then she walked ahead into the jungle, and he followed, knowing his life had just changed forever.